I was 23 when this happened, and now at 27 I still think about it all the time. We had gone to Las Vegas to celebrate our friend Andrew's 21st birthday. He was always the quiet and shy type, and we knew he hadn't had much experience with women. So the plan was to get him drunk and finally get him laid. There were 7 of us in total, and we checked into the Carriage House, one of the cheaper hotels we could find, splitting into 2 rooms with Andrew and mine. After grabbing food, we hit the casinos just to say we did it, though only one of us left with more money than he started with. And from there the night blurred into a string of bars, shots, and laughter until we found ourselves in a nightclub that was completely alive, lights flashing and music shaking the room. John and Eddie disappeared with girls after flashing us the "don't wait up" look, leaving the rest of us still trying to push Andrew into talking to someone. But even in his drunk state, he wouldn't dance, wouldn't approach a girl, and we could already tell he wasn't going to meet anyone at this rate. So in our hammered desperation, we left the club and actually went looking for a working girl. It sounds crazy, but at the time it felt like the only way. We found one walking alone and awkwardly asked if she'd be interested in hanging out with Andrew, who, compared to the rest of us, was tipsy but not as wasted. She wasn't anything special even through my drunk eyes, but she studied Andrew for a moment, then grabbed his arm and started walking him down the sidewalk. Andrew looked painfully awkward, but didn't resist. We laughed and followed them out of curiosity, trailing behind as she basically pulled him along through darker and quieter streets, until they reached what looked like an apartment building. They went inside and we left, still joking about it and proud that Andrew might finally get lucky. None of us thought it was strange in the moment. We just went back to the club. And when we finally returned to the hotel around 2 in the morning, Andrew wasn't in either room, which at first didn't seem alarming since we assumed he was still with her. But as I started sobering up a little, I realized it was out of character for him and began feeling uneasy, though my friends told me not to worry, and I eventually passed out. I woke up to the sound of a phone ringing, and at first I thought it was an alarm. But as my head cleared, I realized it was Andrew's number, and when I picked up, my heart dropped because on the other end was heavy breathing, almost like he was in the middle of a panic attack. I put the call on speakers so the others could hear, and though most of what he whispered didn't make sense, we all clearly heard him say it was a woman. "Guys, you gotta get over here right now." But he wouldn't respond to our questions, and then the line went silent. Before we could process what was happening, we heard the slam of a door, and Andrew's blood-curdling screams filled the phone until the call cut off. We were all freaking out, shouting into the phone, and in seconds I was shaking all over. I dialed the police and tried to recall the address, but the truth was we had been too drunk to remember much from the night before. Luckily, one of my friends claimed he remembered the street, so the police came to the hotel and escorted us, while he guided them back through side roads past the club until we reached the same building Andrew had gone into. The officers told us to wait outside, while 2 of them entered, and those minutes waiting felt like hours. Finally, a female officer stepped out and asked us to come inside to identify a body. My whole world felt like it was caving in. John and Jerry broke down crying and refused to go in, so I followed her through the doors, expecting the worst, only to realize immediately that the dead boy lying halfway out of the closet wasn't Andrew. This kid had blonde hair while Andrew's was black. His mouth was open, eyes blank at the ceiling. It was a sight I can't erase from my mind. The officers said they had already searched the place, which turned out not to be an apartment at all, but a dark abandoned storage building. And when I checked the closet myself, hoping to find Andrew hiding, there was nothing, not even his phone, nothing to explain what had happened or where he had gone. A little over a month later, just when I had started convincing myself to stop replaying everything in my head, my phone rang in the middle of the night and the caller ID showed Andrew's number. The reception was bad and at first no one spoke. I was about to hang up when I heard a faint but familiar voice whisper my name. "Jesse." It was Andrew. I yelled into the phone, but all I heard after that was the slam of a door and the line went dead. I tried calling him back 5 times, but he never answered. So I called the police and begged them to trace it. The results shook me even more. The call hadn't come from Nevada at all. It came from New Jersey, our own hometown, just minutes from where I lived. The police said they were sending someone to check the address, but I couldn't sit still. I jumped into my car, put the GPS on the address, and drove as fast as I could when I arrived. It was a vacant house sitting on the corner, dark and silent. I crept up to the front door and pressed my ear against it, but heard nothing. So I circled around back and found an open window. When I listened again, I could hear faint snaps and cracks from upstairs, the kind of sound would make under someone's weight. I climbed in and barely made it into the hallway when I noticed someone standing there. All I could see were pale legs and long black hair hanging past the shoulders. It was a woman, and for a moment I thought she was about to rush me. But instead she turned and ran. A door slammed, and then I heard the voices, a man and a woman shouting at each other. Heavier footsteps pounded up the stairs, and I didn't wait around to find out what came next. I bolted out of the house and hid in the bushes just as the front door opened. A man stepped onto the porch, and at that exact moment, by some miracle, a police car pulled up with lights flashing. The man cursed under his breath and ran back inside, but the cops followed through the unlocked door. I stayed hidden until I saw them bring him out in handcuffs. Then I stepped forward and warned them there was a woman too, but she was already gone. One of the upstairs windows was wide open. The police found Andrew upstairs, locked inside a closet, alive, but in a terrible state, thin, dirty, his hair long and matted, and you could smell the stench on him from across the room. He later told me he had been beaten, starved, and raped, and that the girl who had first taken him was only there to deliver him to what he described as operators' people, who forced him to give up his hometown and the addresses of the rest of us, which explained why the nightmare had followed us back, but never truly explained why, or what they ultimately wanted. After Andrew was rescued, things should have gone back to normal, but they didn't. He was alive, yet broken in ways I couldn't fully understand. He admitted everything, only to me telling me how he had been raped, beaten, and fed just enough to survive, how the woman who led him away in Vegas wasn't really with the man at the house, but was working for others, operators as he called them, and how they had demanded his hometown and the addresses of everyone who had been with him that night, which made sense of how the nightmare had followed us, but it didn't explain why. And to everyone else in our group I said I didn't know the details. I carried his secret alone and tried to push it out of my head, but it wouldn't stay gone. Not when I started getting random text messages late at night from unknown numbers, short and taunting, sometimes just saying you or nothing but a blank space. Every time I tried replying, I found I was blocked, and then I would block them back, only for it to happen again the following week. The pattern kept repeating until one night it escalated into something I will never forget. I woke up to a faint brightness in my bedroom, and for a moment thought it was morning sunlight, but then realized it was coming from the backyard porch light shining through the blinds. I froze when I saw a shadow moving across the slats, the outline of someone standing there. I tried to convince myself it was my imagination until I lifted the blind just enough to peek out, and my stomach dropped. Someone was right there at the window staring in at me, waiting for me to notice them. But the second I registered what I was seeing, they moved away, gone before I could even grab my phone to take a picture. And though I only caught a glimpse, I am sure it was her, the same long-haired woman I saw in that vacant house, the one who had pulled Andrew away that night. That was the last direct encounter I've had. But even now, I don't believe it's over. Nothing about this whole situation has ever made complete sense. Not with Andrew's story, not with the abandoned storage building, not with the man who claimed he didn't even know the woman, and not with the fact that she has never been found. I try to live my life like it's behind me, but deep down I am just waiting for the day she shows up again. And if she does, I'll be ready to call the police the second I see her, or if it comes to it, to take her on myself, because I know this isn't finished and she's still out there.